Hello, friends. The story that I will tell you today has touched the hearts of millions of people around the world. So watch till the end. Belly fat has been a hot topic for ages. Girls freak out even if a little bit of fat starts accumulating around their belly, and today boys too remain equally concerned. But hardly anyone wants to put an effort to reduce it. All they want is a tonic that could just make them get into shape without doing exercise and workout. But what if a person is an athlete and exercising is in his routine? Kevin was one of those people who would not leave his exercise even for a day. Then what might have happened? His belly fat increased as much as a 9-month pregnant woman. Kevin was a financial planner in one of the most reputed firms, and unlike other people, he was satisfied with his job. He was doing what he loved to do and found peace at his workplace, which was really rare. Most people in this era need money for their Gucci bag and Rolex watch, but they don't want to earn it, rather grab it from someone else. He was not only a workaholic, but he actively participated in athletics too. A sound body has a sound mind, and he seemed to clearly understand this proverb. He was in a habit of involving himself in various sports whenever he used to get the time and did yoga on a regular basis. He too used to guide people for the same, and everyone was in awe of him that at this age too he was able to maintain himself very well. Though he had entered his 60s, and at this age when other people give up, he was the one who would run around like no one less than a 21-year-old boy. He was an inspiration to his family members and was very popular among the young generation, because unlike all the other elderly people, he used to encourage the youth and guide them with new perspectives. Kevin was not just good at work or sports, but he was also a very caring and adoring husband to his wife. They both used to equally divide the household chores, and the couple was adored by everyone. His wife used to tell him how lucky she was to marry such a person. Comparatively to other family members, he seldom used to drink. It was the year 2015 when Kevin started to feel fatigued every time he used to walk even just to the corner of the street, and frequently complained about pain in his chest. He knew he was getting old, and everyone assured him that this was bound to happen, but he was sure that it was something more than his age. Kevin was never the one who would ignore the signals of his body, and without wasting any time, he rushed to the hospital to get it checked. As suspected, it was more than just the age. He had heart disease, and the doctor suggested him to undergo open heart surgery for his calcified valve. Calcium was getting accumulated in his aortic valve in the heart, hence narrowing its opening. In early December, Kevin underwent open heart surgery. While everyone in his family was afraid, he was calm and composed during the whole process. He reached inside the operation theater without any wheelchair for his support, and the doctors were too impressed by his positive nature and confidence. After a few hours in the operation theater, the doctors came out with a bright smile on their faces, indicating the operation had been successful. The family members sighed a big relief, especially Kevin's wife, who had been worrying about it since they got him into the room. Everyone came to Kevin's ward after he gained his consciousness and were happy to see him all right. Was it the end of all the diseases? Soon Kevin was given discharge from the hospital, and without wasting any more time at home, he got back to work. The people in the office were happy to see him back. Even after a lot of persuasions from his wife and managers, he resumed back to work. Soon, things got back on track, and Kevin was back with more energy than before. It was a Monday morning, and Kevin was combing his hair. His wife suddenly teased him that his beer belly had become quite prominent those days. He too was feeling that he was gaining weight and turned anxiously towards his wife and asked if she was serious. She laughed and said that it was normal to gain weight at this age. Was it just a harmless accumulation of fat or something else? Even after his wife's assurance that the fat was something normal for his age, his curiosity increased, because now he knew he wasn't the only one who had noticed that change. So while he was doing his work at the office that day, he couldn't help his thoughts getting back to his fat that was growing around his belly. It was Christmas Eve, and months had passed from the incident. He had become so conscious about his health that he had cut out on most of the fats and started to exercise regularly in a hope that it would help him reduce some weight. But his tension grew more intense when at Christmas Eve almost everyone pointed out his beer belly, and ironically, he had never touched beer in his whole life. He took his body's warnings quite seriously and fixed an appointment with the doctor. Without wasting any more time, he showed up at the time of the appointment and waited for the doctor's arrival. Soon he entered the doctor's cabin and raised his doubts. To his surprise, the doctor passed him a smile and gave him the exact answer the other people were giving him. But this only increased his tension, and he firmly asked the doctor not to take his case that lightly. On his numerous requests, the doctor prescribed him some medicines and exercise. Kevin was still apprehensive about the prescription because he couldn't make up his mind that this fat was just accumulating due to his age. He had a strong feeling that it was something else still. He agreed with the doctor and left the cabin. Would the prescription help him lose the weight? Kevin was someone who would take the doctor's advice very sincerely, and he had no problem doing the exercise too, but his patience was losing day by day as he could not observe a single change in his weight. He sometimes doubted that the doctors must have left some surgical tools inside while performing his heart surgery. Would that be possible? It had been 2 years since he had started with his medication, and he was able to shed off 34 pounds in total, but to his disappointment, he wasn't able to lose a single pound near his belly. His doubts were somewhere materializing, but every time he used to pinpoint that incident, his wife would casually brush off his uncertainties. Still nothing would calm him down. Kevin was finally fed up with the doctor's careless behavior and thought of firmly asking him to properly examine him to know the exact cause. When he reached there, it was a long queue before his turn, and this was getting on his nerves. As his turn came up, he hurriedly moved inside looking for the doctor. At this point, his frustration had turned into anger. What would he do? He asked the doctor firmly that he should change his prescription and look into the matter seriously, or otherwise he would be forced to take some action regarding the same. The doctor calmed him down by saying that he shouldn't get angry on small things, as this would affect his health. But Kevin was in no mood to calm down. He was eager to know about the reason why his stomach had started bloating even after all the exercise and medications. Soon, the doctor suggested him to undergo an abdominal CT scan, as it was the only way to know what monster was residing in his stomach, which was making it impossible to lose weight. Finally, the day came when he had to undergo the test, which would reveal what was causing such accumulation of fat around his belly. After the destined hours, the result came out, and it stunned everybody, including Kevin. It was neither some surgical material that he was supposing, nor even the fat that most people were thinking it to be. The reason he was accumulating so much fat around was because of the tumor that was growing inside him. Until the day of revelation, it had massively grown up to the size of a cat. Kevin was stunned by the discovery. It was a revelation that he could never expect in life, considering his health-conscious nature. He said in a statement that for a second I was vindicated, and then I was completely panicked because when a doctor says that you have an extremely large mass, you assume that you have a cancerous tumor growing in your stomach. After the discovery of the cause of the growing mass in the abdominal area, the next step was to get the monster out of his body. He consulted doctors in Lenox Hill Hospital in New York City for further treatment. Most of the doctors were afraid to take the case in their hands because of the size the tumor was massive. Would they be able to take it out safely and save Kevin from the danger? After a lot of speculation about Kevin's case, Dr. Giulio Teixeira got ready to take the case in his hand and agreed to do the surgery. They fixed a date to remove the massive mass from the stomach, which was basically a type of cancer called Liposarcoma. As the size of the tumor was unimaginably large, so the doctors had to remove it immediately because with each passing day it was turning fatal for Kevin. Hence, action was required. Liposarcoma is not a common type of cancer generally found in people. It gradually begins in the fat cells and is considered a type of soft tissue sarcoma. It can attack any part of the body, especially in the muscles of the limbs or in the abdomen. Though not found generally, they are reported to affect the adults than the younger ones. It's generally termed as malignant tumor as it arises in mesenchymal cells, where abnormal fat cells in deep tissues multiply in number in an unregulated manner, hence causing a big lump of mass in the limb or abdominal area. It can rarely become into a large mass, but in the case of Kevin, it had worsened due to lack of proper diagnosis. This kind of cancer is very rarely found in people, at most 1% among all the newly found cancers. They are known to develop from the deeper fat tissues. It's unknown what triggers this type of cancer, but the research is going on to know exactly the root cause of the same. So it was fairly a big risk in front of the doctor who was handling Kevin's case. As the cancer is not one of the commonly found cancers, so there should be some certain signs to look out to avoid further complications. Basically, the symptoms depend upon the location of the tumor, but still one should get alert if he or she feels a growing lump under the skin, especially when it is causing pain. One should be aware if he or she feels fatigued most of the time or weakness. Chest pain is one of the prominent signs that might indicate cancer development. Most importantly, if the person feels difficulty in swallowing or difficulty in urinary, this might be the indication for the same. In such cases, one should visit the doctor on a priority basis if he or she feels the pain frequently. The surgery started at the stipulated time in the Lenox Hill Hospital. It was the first time that Kevin was anxious and nervous. He dreaded about the consequences as it was the most unusual case the doctors had encountered, and they were afraid too. But Dr. Takesar stayed composed and tried his best to calm down Kevin too. It was a big task for the doctors as well, considering it had grown massively. Everyone was praying for the surgery to be successful. Even the doctor himself was praying because it was the largest tumor he would be operating in his life, so the situation was obviously very delicate. But there was more surprise waiting than just cancer that held the potential to shake the doctor from inside. This case was, of course, 1 in a million, and as its various layers were slowly revealing, it became difficult for the doctor to digest what they were operating. The doctor had a rough idea about the size of the tumor he would be operating on. But the revelation the size of the tumor still sent a chill to his bones. Was it that terrific? He was completely stunned when he and the team pulled out the large bulk of mass from his abdomen. He was estimating it to be 12 pounds or less, and when they discovered the actual size, it was shocking. The mass, when calculated, turned around to be nearly 30 pounds, which is equivalent to approximately a 1-year-old kid, and that was in his stomach and still growing rapidly. Fortunately, the doctor's hard work paid off and the surgery was successful. When the doctor came out of the operation theater and broke the good news, everyone sighed with relief. His wife thanked the doctor several times. But in this process, the doctor had to remove one of his kidneys as it had been rotten inside by the tumor. But the bright side was Kevin was okay. After the surgery, there was a miraculous change in Kevin's body. It seemed as if he had regained his old self from his college time. He had lost 30 pounds altogether and was finally happy after the big monster had been removed from his body, which was eating him from inside. Even after the surgery, he never left his exercise for a single day. Most people forget to take care of themselves after they undergo surgery. It becomes a task for them to take medicine because they come under this impression that they have fully recovered and now they don't require any medications further. But what they don't understand is that it becomes more important to care for yourselves, especially after the surgery. Because of the vulnerability after the surgery, it's the duty of the patient to take care of themselves with utmost sincerity. Otherwise, the disease is more likely to come back and attack the body, again creating more adversities. Kevin was quite aware of the same, so he tried every bit not to avoid any routine. Kevin had always been the person who would guide people, and when he had gone through so much, he took it as his duty to make people aware of the same. So whenever he used to go out on a walk or exercise in the morning, he had made a point to discuss the rare disease and its symptoms as his hobby. He used to get positive reviews about the same. The researchers were putting their efforts too. They were constantly trying to find ways to stop cancer from roots, or at least finding some early symptoms so that it could be caught in the very early stages. But first, people need to be alert about the symptoms and avoid anything that might increase the possibility of such a mishap in future. There was a big lesson in Kevin's story that made this operation successful and most of the time overlooked by many of us. And that was how he paid attention to the signals his body was giving him. If at all he would have ignored it and thought it like the other people, then it wouldn't have been possible for him to know about the disease and its diagnosis. So one should never avoid any unusual thing caused inside the body. With a great amount of courage and patience, Kevin recovered fully and lived a healthy life. He didn't skip his exercise and medication for once. He was a live example for people recovering from the dreadful disease like this, and also setting an example that nothing should lower your spirits in any case. So friends, it's just a simple story that really makes you think. I hope you enjoyed it well. That's it for today. Rate this video, share it with your friends, and we'll see you next time.